Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 359. Welcome back to my co-host, Jordan Tyra. How are we?
Very good, thank you. Looking forward to another one as always.
Very excited for this one because on this episode, I welcome Liam Moore. Liam's a ex-professional, played at some top clubs, including Leicester, Reading, and also at international level as well. So, Liam, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me on. As I said to you when you invited me on, it's something slightly different, but something I'm excited for actually because it is an area where I'm passionate about. I've had my own kind of trials and tribulations with the S&C side, and I've enjoyed watching a couple of your podcasts and the things that you have to talk about.
Awesome, mate. No, it's great to have you on for a number of different reasons. One, because we're going to pull from all your experiences as a player and also now as a business owner as well, which I know has transitioned a little bit from what you've been used to. But just take us back. Let's talk about the playing career to start with. It's always great to speak to a professional like yourself to get experiences on the support that you've received, sports science, S&C mainly, because obviously that's what we're talking about in our expertise and our listeners as well. How have you found that change throughout your career?
To be honest, I've had probably experience in most areas in the S&C. I was very lucky at Leicester City when I was coming through. They introduced it to us very early. So from the age of probably 12, 13, we was training technique on all of the kind of areas that are now coming back around again. So we was just with a wooden bar, we was learning how to deadlift properly, Olympic lifts, and the technique was, I think, pretty bang on from a young age at Leicester. And we transitioned into the kind of reserves and first team where that continued. And I would say that within our squad, we'd built a very robust and we was known for being strong at 18 reserve and moving into the first team. We'd created young players that were ready to play in the first team because of that kind of athletic background that we'd had. Later on during my career, I'd obviously played for some really good championship teams. I've been on loan a couple of times in League One and League Two, and you do get the two different sides of it. You know, some places are not got the resources that you probably need to continue that training that we had worked on. So then it becomes down to trying to get your individual bits in. So as a whole, I feel like I've kind of tested both sides of the coin. I've had it kind of on a plate for me, and I've also gone out and tried to get those resources off my own back as well.
Is there anything on reflection where you'd have, obviously knowing what you know now, and we'll go into the business in a second as well, but knowing what you know now, is there anything you'd have done more of, done less of, or maybe focused on a bit more through the career in terms of like the physical side?
I definitely would have continued the kind of route I was going on as a young player at Leicester City. So we was lifting heavy young, and we was also lifting regular. And I do believe when you look for longevity in your career, it's a very key area. S&C, for me, if you'd have asked me during the peak of my career when I was just banging out games after games, I would have said it's not really such a big thing. But when you look back on it and you look back at the kind of athletic performance that I had in the early parts of my career, where that was just part of my usual schedule, to the back end where injuries started to kind of come into place and certain deficiencies, I do wish I would have continued in that state. And I know everybody speaks about it, but Ronaldo, consistency is key. And I do believe that an area that I would have continued and an area that I would have focused on just as much as on the pitch. Because when you're playing in the Championship and League One, especially, the games are every 3 days. So naturally, you're not going to do as much. But if you maintain kind of the level that you was at, you can still get those doses in because you're equipped for it. Your body's, it's ready to do what you need it to do. When you kind of dip in it and you dip out of it, that's where naturally you are going to get a few kind of maybe niggles, or you are going to get very domsy. And that was an area that a lot of boys used to hate. I'm not going to lift today because I've got a game on Saturday. Mm. Well, if we strip that back a little bit and we think, well, if you do, I don't know, a set of Nordics on a Thursday or a Friday, and you hadn't done them throughout the off season or the last season, of course you are, because you're going to adapt to it. So obviously a long-winded answer, but I would have definitely focused with the consistency of always sticking at it, because the human body is obviously amazing. It adapts to everything. You've just got to maintain it, and you've got to make sure that you've got the right people that are pushing you in the right direction as well. Nothing too fancy, nothing too out of the ordinary, but just sticking to the basics and the principles that are going to keep you fit and give you longevity to play as long as somebody like Ronaldo has.
I think it's a really important point. Would you say that's a common thought amongst players now? Do they understand the strength side and why they are doing that? Or is there still a little bit of resistance in terms of, I'm going to get too sore for game day and all the rest of it?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that a lot of players are wary of it, and it is difficult. I understand that because management changes within clubs quite regular, and everybody comes with their own ideas. Naturally, when a manager changes, I'd say the percentage is pretty high that the S&C lead will change as well because they'll have somebody trusted, and everybody's ideas are very different. I always just look back at the times where we've come up against teams and I thought they were physically like top. And you look at Wolves. Wolves was a great example a couple of years ago. Well, it would have been about 5, 6 years ago now, actually. And they brought in like a Portuguese staff with Nuno. And I remember looking over to them on a match day. They didn't come out for the warm up until about 20 minutes before, and we're warming up on our own, looking at what's going on. But they're obviously not getting ready for this game. Like we should have a great start here. After the game, they was also working, and then you start to dive into it a little bit deeper, and they'd had a continuous plan of what they wanted to do and how they were going to lift and what they truly believed in. And that didn't just happen overnight. It's consistency. The off season, they did it all. A lot of the neuro excellence stuff, so a lot of the movement stuff, a lot of whatever you put in, you take out, kind of work. And I believe that they reaped the rewards of that throughout the season. They had a very consistent squad. And then the flip side of it, when the management changes and people then start to kind of naturally lay off it a little bit, you are going to start picking up things, and you are going to get a few lads that maybe resist to the training a little bit because they've been doing it before. And even though they might not have actually felt or understood that they were getting the benefits of it, when you stop and then somebody comes in again after the next change and then they get them back to it, you've got to adapt again. So the resistance from the player point of view will always be, I'm not quite sure what's working here. Why do I feel domsy? Why do I feel tired on a match day? And that's where I think there is a bit of a grey area for players because we're not always told what we're doing and why we're doing it. You do naturally then kind of come up with your own conclusions, and you think, that I was a bit tired from that today. But yeah, it is a grey area, and it is an area where players, I do believe, are a little bit hesitant on it because you want to know your ideas. And I feel like injury is a key part when you can start to take in the information because you can ask the questions. And that kind of is an area where I do believe in football could be a little bit better explained for everybody on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you can do it.
Jordan, that's a really important point, isn't it? And it's interesting just speaking. I know we're speaking about players as a whole, and there's a lot of moving parts within that and different experiences within that as well. But just getting Liam's perspective on generally what players are, their approach and their perspective maybe of strength work is interesting, isn't it? And how they think about it.
Yeah, 100%. And just brilliant that you've opened up like that, Liam, in terms of your experiences, because this is sort of everything that we try and say on the podcast, really, is that, we see it from both sides. We've both worked at clubs, and it's one of those where it's kind of like, at times it's difficult, and sometimes you're just trying to get gym session after gym session out. You're trying to get the lads in the gym, the girls in the gym, whatever it might be, and it's like, there's your program, crack on. And like you said, you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes you just forget, or sometimes we just aren't in the habit of explaining why we're doing what we're doing. So you saying that there is we say it a lot of the time where you got to educate a long time. We as coaches are educators as well. And literally one of the last podcasts we were talking about this in terms of when we are in the gym, if you're doing microdosing, or you're looking at traditional strength work, if you're not explaining to the players, this is why we're doing it, then you end up in that grey area, like you said. So that's really like powerful that you said that, because this is sort of banging the same drum that we're always banging on about. And I think that communication with the players is so important, just from your own point of view, because as you know better than anyone, when you're on the same page, and you've got an S&C coach sort of saying, "All right, I want you to push your body to, the limits here. I want you to really go for it." And you're thinking, "Well, I know that's going to make me sore," and that's all the information you've had. You're probably reluctant, and you're not going to go 100%. But as if we can say as the coach to you, "I want you to push your body to be on the limits because we've got a 4-day lead into the game. You're going to have ample recovery time." And what it's actually going to mean is that when the game rolls around, you're going to be better prepared for it. You're going to be better, going to be stronger, faster, fitter, whatever it might be. And then you as the player, just from that simple extra sentence, you as the player are probably going to go, "Oh, okay, fair enough." Is that fair? Would you agree with that sort of thing?
Completely. Yeah, I think that's pretty much spot on. As I said before, when I was injured, I asked those questions, and I probably forced those answers. So it did make rehab a little bit more bearable. Because as you say, when you're not kind of getting that information, it's just right, here's 3 sets of 8 on this, smash them out, and then on to the next thing, smash them out. Day one, you probably do it. Day 10, 15, 20, or even longer if you've got a long-term injury, just get into that kind of thought process like, why am I doing this? I did that yesterday, or I did that last week, and I feel like I've completed that. Why are we not moving on? And as you said, in a group setting or an individual setting where you are kind of gave that information, and it gives you an edge. It gives you an edge within your own mind as a player. I've done what was needed to be done there. I know why I did it, and I know the benefits I'm going to get from it. So the communication is obviously a very key area.
Lou, I'm keen to get into the facility because you just mentioned before we started recording that retirement normally comes with a bit of extra time on the golf course and all the rest of it. And you've basically chosen the opposite route. So talk to us about, firstly, the facility, where it came from, what was the idea, and what are you guys doing? Who you supporting now?
I picked up a big injury back end of my career. And unfortunate for me, it was in the last year of my contract. Disastrous timing. It couldn't have been any worse for somebody that had been pretty robust, played a lot of games, probably averaged about 40 games a season for a number of years. Then to pick up an injury and carry that through to being out of contract was a bit of a nightmare. In the period I spent without a contract and being injured, I went around a number of different facilities, not only in the country, but also in Europe, and actually further overseas as well. I then moved on to the PFA out of contract camp, which was great. It was amazing. And then had a few different sniffs at a few different clubs, actually got back into the game for a short period at Northampton, and then got injured again there, back end of that. And then I went through the whole process again of being out of contract, training alone through the summer, going to a number of different places. And ultimately, my career finished, I believe, from more of a, rather than a one-off individual kind of injury where that would just finish me, it was a number of injuries that kept kind of accumulating. And that led me on to this place, basically. So I've got a 14,000 square foot warehouse where I just wanted to put all of my, I was going to say experience, it is my experience, but more my pain from what happened at the back end of my career into a facility that can kind of help bridge that gap between being out of contract and getting back to doing what we all love and what's our job and what's our livelihood. So I took all of the kind of good bits that I'd experienced when I was out of contract, going to all these different facilities, and moved it into one place. So for me, a big part that I struggled with was going one place for S&C, then going to hire like an individual football coach, then go into a recovery center, then go into someone else for more probably fitness work. Because when I was doing that, nobody communicated, and I found myself in a bit of that bit of a loophole of where I was just running into problem after problem, because I might go and see a guy on a Monday doing S&C and we were lifting heavy, and I might have my football session booked in on a Tuesday, and naturally I'm going to be fatigued. I'm going to be, have my DOMs. I'm going to be probably not in the best state to work football. And I just believe there's a massive, massive kind of gap in the market for something like this, where somebody can come in and they can get the full package. So they can come in and then they can get their football work, and we'll get their numbers, we'll get their data. We can move them onto the S&C, so the gym side. We can get their work numbers again. We can get their data, and then also we can recover properly. So we've got like a couple of ice baths. We've got like your compression boots. We've got an infrared sauna, and on top of that, that I didn't mention before, we've also got a testing room, which is a valve testing room, and it's just trying to replicate a football club to the highest level we can for players that are trying to get back in the game that probably haven't had the opportunities. I did a lot of research before this. I spoke to a lot of lads because obviously I had my own kind of pain and my own kind of trauma from being out of contract and running down local parks, guessing on numbers. I got myself injured from doing that. So I was out of contract. It was a Saturday. I felt fit, went down the park, thought, let me try and replicate a game. Switched on my stat sport at the end of it. I'd done 1,200 meters high speed running. As a centre half, I'd be anywhere between 400 to 500. Again, the Monday comes, nobody advised me, went down to do some more work on a Monday, pulled my hamstring. At the time, obviously, my head's absolutely flying. When in reflection, I look back at that and be like, that was a load that I would never get anywhere near when I'm in a professional setting. So the whole reason for this place is for examples like that. And I've spoke to many others. I've spoke to lads that have been running around local parks when they're out of contract. I spoke to lads that are going to, your local gyms, which is great. But as you guys will well know, the equipment used within like a sports and football in particular environment is a lot different to what you'd get at your local gyms. The way that we squat will be different to, like an everyday gym goer, because we might need a little bit of support on like a little heel raise, for example. We might not be able to get into positions that naturally where most people would expect, bar behind the back of your head. Sometimes we've got the belt squats. You've got the eccentric machines as well. Obviously, we will focus on a lot of force kind of in terms of lifting, curling. But then what about how fast can you decelerate and things like that go very much under the radar when you are kind of trying to do it yourself or rely on people that don't have that kind of sports background. So this place is for that. And it's also for people that we spoke about briefly before starting the podcast of football's going massively in the route of a lot of individual coaches. So you'll have your S&C guy at the club and footballers are all doing it. Like it might be a little bit hidden, but everybody's at it. They get an outside influence from whether it's a treatment point of view, so soft tissue work, or whether it's S&C work. And we want to try and get a safe place here where you can come in, you can get your individual work. You can have the whole gym if you like. You very much focus on what you need to do, but clubs are also being involved in that dialogue as well. So he is going to do extras. These are the reasons he's doing extras, and this is exactly what he's doing. It's safe. He's been tested. We know where he's at fatigue-wise. We know where he's at strength-wise. And we can give you that information back. We're not guessing. We're not just lobbing on loads of weights and saying, oh, you're a strong lad, go and lift as heavy as you can, and not taking into account that you've got a game on Saturday. It's just trying to make a club away from a club, basically, and give you the best environment with the best information, with the best testing facilities we have available, with the most safest equipment, and be a trusted venue.
We spoke, Jordan, didn't we, about the levels of private support and that we can't group everyone in terms of private into one group from, and no disrespect to personal trainers in a pure gym or wherever it is, but you've got a personal trainer there that doesn't really understand maybe the world of football. And then you've got exactly what Liam's just described there. Two different worlds completely, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is the perfect follow-on from our previous podcast, I would say. You've pretty much better than we did in an hour. You've just summed up why it's so important to do it in about 5 minutes. So I just think you've hit every nail on the head in terms of, I think some clubs, not all of them, I can't brand it from the same brush, but like some clubs get funny when a player wants to go out and work externally. It's like an ego hit. It's like, why? We're doing it for you. Why are you going to an external practitioner? But which I don't personally get, but the example you're using there in terms of if you're out of contract, you're injured, you're looking for a club, you're coming back off a long-term injury, and you just want to get sharper to come back, even if you're in contract, when you're going back into when you're fully fit, players are going to almost go and do what they can to make sure they're at the best of their ability. So 100%, like you say, when you go down the park and you're almost trying to guess stuff, and you know, stat sport, we use them at our place at the Physical Performance Hub. Fantastic equipment in terms of they give you visual, they give you data and all that sort of stuff. But like you hit the nail on the head there. If it's not a longitudinal tract, like with a GPS analyst or a sports scientist, you get a snapshot and it's like, oh yeah, cool, I've just done 500 meters of high speed running, but you might not have been wearing it for the 2 3 weeks before, and all of a sudden, you just found that you've either dipped your load or you spiked your load, like the example you gave there, which is a really really powerful one. So having everything on one site, and I think the bit you sort of finished on with clubs having somewhere they can trust, I think is really important. And I love it because, like I said, it follows on really nicely from our podcast, and hopefully it spreads the message a little bit more that if you've always worked at a club and you've never worked privately, you just get into club mode and you just sort of like, well, we just club to club, day to day, we just work the players, and you don't think about the outside influence. So when a player does go to the outside practitioner, they're thinking, oh, I can't do it. They don't know what they're talking about. But having facilities like yours, hopefully like ours and Ben's as well in Manchester, it does provide players that opportunity. And the fact you've tried to go everything under one roof, and you have gone everything under one roof, is amazing. Essentially, I'm really jealous. I'd love that space. So it's what we're trying to do. But the fact you've got it there, honestly, like it's amazing. And I think that because of obviously your background as a player, clubs hopefully you could be a nice little window for a lot of clubs to go, oh, actually, maybe we can start to trust external practitioners a little bit more. And I'm not saying every club does that, but there are a lot of clubs which don't. So just from your experience then, looking at external practitioners, have you witnessed, you might have seen it yourself, where clubs were, dare I say it, getting funny about lads going and working with external practitioners? Have you seen that firsthand?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I was at a club that it became quite a problem actually. Boys picking up injuries, and I do get the logistic side of it because we had some boys picking up injuries and flying to China, for example. There was a lad that did that for some treatment, a couple that went to Portugal, and I get the logistical side of it and the communication. That's obviously key from both sides, not only the club but the player as well. But I also did get the players' frustration in terms of I'm coming in to get treatment off let's just say they've got a hamstring injury, 6 to 8 weeks. And you know what it's like within a club. It's a lot budget based as well. You've got to understand that you've got your manager, you've got your assistant, you've got your analysis, and you've got one S&C guy. This S&C guy has to take care of everybody's weight in the morning, everybody's pre-ab, everybody's warm-up, the injured players, rehab, recovery, data load, download the GPS, how much they've done. Like one man can't do 10 man's worth of work. And I think there's got to be a balance in between what the club wants from you and also an understanding of what the club can actually give you. It's not a shade on the club that they're not doing enough. They clearly are. It's just that one person can't do everything. And I did experience that kind of tension between what you're doing outside and what you're doing inside. And the problem is, as I said before, everybody's at it. Everybody's doing it. Footballers now. If you're not doing extras, you're falling behind. That's where the game's gone. You've got to be athletically outstanding to play at a high level. That's one of the key areas that you need to tick now. But when clubs are kind of resistant to it, that then creates secrets. People are going to go out and do their work and not speak to the club. And then the club's going to expect you to do certain things. You're going to have done other things outside the club. And then there's very much a grey area again where nobody really knows where they stand. So I think it's a conversation that does need to be kind of outed more and really focused on within the clubs rather than kind of a shut door mentality where it's, no, you're doing our work, that's it. Actually, maybe just opening the door and say, okay, you can do your work, but one, we want to meet with the guy that you're doing it with. We want to hear his kind of programming for you, his theories, what he's doing, why he's doing it, and just having that dialogue, because ultimately what clubs want you to do is be fit and on the pitch and give absolutely everything you can in every game. If we've got somebody outside that can help you do that and individually focus on you and your needs, it's only a benefit for the club. And it's only going to take workload off of the medical department and the S&C department. So I think football is a little bit behind on that. You know, you look at the very best basketball players, for example. It was no secret that people like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, people like that, they was doing it day in, day out. They had their own mental performance coaches. They had their own masseurs, soft tissue guys. They had a team around them, and the longevity and their careers speak for themselves. And the best example that we briefly mentioned before, Cristiano Ronaldo, it's always been out there. I think it was Evra that said he went round his house and he couldn't believe it. There was 5 or 6 different people like, oh, that's my chef, that's this guy, that's that guy. Well, the proof's in the pudding. You know, he's 40 now, Ronaldo's playing at the highest level in terms of international. He's still playing week in, week out, audience over in Saudi. And he's looked after himself and he's had that outside support. So I do believe that clubs need to be a little bit more open-minded to it. Naturally, like all things, they do need the qualifications, whoever you're working with. Clubs are well within the rights of, you know, speaking to these people and making sure they are right to do what they need to do. But yeah, I could go on about it for ages. Obviously, I've probably spoke for 2 or 3 minutes on it there, but one person can't do every job. And that was an area that I struggled with when I had my bigger injuries. Like, it was absolutely nothing against the S&C guy that we had at the time, but he had to prioritize the squad that was going to be there on a Saturday. So there was a lot of time spent either doing my own program or kind of waiting for him to finish, where I might have done my warm up and then he gets dragged out to go and do something. And then I'm kind of sat around for 45 minutes and then I've got to pick it up again. And there's a lot of grey areas on that and a lot of areas that I do believe can be improved with a bit more of an open mind.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because again, many nails getting hit on the head here. What you're not calling clubs out. I think that's the most important thing. You're saying the clubs are trying their best, and the people in those roles, and I've been in those roles, and you are just spinning so many plates, and I've seen it firsthand. I've warmed up a person doing a rehab, I've warmed up the squad, and it's just overrun a little bit, and I'm sorry, all right, you've cooled down, I need to re-warm me up again. It's not through fault of yourself, you just stretched too thin. So I think what you're saying there is really powerful, because like I said, in the last podcast, we were talking about, you know, exactly like you said there, players want the attention on them. So they want to be completely focused on them and their career. So getting outside influence isn't a bad thing. I think players are well within their rights to do that. But what we're not saying, and you've done it so well, is that it's the club's fault. It's not the club's fault. And hopefully it's a little call to action maybe to the clubs to go, actually, why are all our or some players looking to go externally? And then they can hopefully look internally and go, well, actually, because 10 jobs are falling on one person's shoulders, maybe we need to support them now. You know, and you know, we're now seeing set piece coaches, we're now seeing, you know, opposition analysts, you know, defensive analysts, all these different roles. And actually, hopefully, it might be a little option for clubs to go, actually, yeah, how can we better support some of our sports science, our medicine, or S&C departments? And some clubs are doing it. Again, I'm not going to paint everyone with the same brush. Some of the bigger clubs, rehab roles, you know, specific roles based around end stage rehab and things like that. And that's hopefully going to continue, because that's really going to help the industry. So yeah, I think just wanted to make that point that, again, you're not bad mouthing the clubs. They're doing the best. The S&C coaches are doing their best, but it's physically impossible to do 10 people's roles in one. So yeah, very well put, mate.
I think on that, Jordan, as well, like Liam made a really good point, and it's something we've said about before, is having people you can refer out to that you trust.
Yeah.
So if you are in the Midlands and you're at a club that's not too far away from Liam's facility, you can have them as a referral point. So you're not just saying to players, or players aren't just looking, going, I need someone external. They're actually going, right, if you're going to be working with someone, these are the ones that we trust. We know they're going to do a good job. We've already got open communication with them. We know it's going to be transparent in terms of both sides. You're going to get the most out of it. It's not just you searching on Instagram or whatever it is, just trying to find someone random. I think that's the important thing, isn't it? That as a club, as a practitioner at a club, even, that's probably a job that you need to have, where you're like, right, who in the local area are my players potentially going to go and work with? And let's try and get some people that we can actually trust. Is that fair, Liam?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you look at, when we go back to kind of why I built the venue and my ideas behind it, a real good starting point on that would be the game changer at St George's Park. So when players get bigger injuries, they will get referred to Game Changer, and clubs are more than happy to send them there because they're a trusted place. They've got the facilities that are needed, and I think there could be more of them. Naturally, everyone's got their capacity. I believe it's 6 per week that they can have at St George's. And I think they've got a really great model there. And we would like to be another kind of option for that as well. There's more than 6 people that are injured and need your support. Obviously, a big personal thing for me is the out of contract area, whether it's out of contract and trying to maintain fitness or injured and out of contract. But I believe we've got a facility here where we can look after those players as well that do need the external kind of help. And even because we're not governed by anybody's kind of timetables and how it works, the players that are actually fit, they're firing, but aren't actually doing other bits and pieces outside the club. The ultimate aim would be to be a company that clubs can say, I know my player wants extra work. I know he needs to kind of improve in certain areas. We can't actually give him everything he needs because we've got a 25-man squad. That is the place to go because I know that your place is going to feed us back the information that we need as well. There's obviously naturally got to be, which I have to say for players, that kind of trust. You know, if you've got like a little niggle, again, all players do it. You want to go and see someone externally. You need to trust that guy that's going to try and help you get back to a position to play on a Saturday without the risk of going back to the club of saying, by the way, there's got to be that kind of trust between both ways. But also from the club's point of view, I trust that you are going to be very, very honest in terms of this is what his numbers are. I do feel concerned. So it is difficult for people trying to do that because that is quite a big balancing point, getting the players' trust and getting the club's trust. But I think if you've got everything in place and you've got all of the right facilities and all of the right kind of testing markers, you can build that trust pretty easily and pretty quickly with both club and player.
And I think the thing, again, really, really good points. I think the thing which always blows my mind a little bit with this, and you'll know this unfortunately better than anyone with injuries, is clubs are quite happy to refer to specialists on the medical side when we're looking at medical specialists, or we might be looking at surgeons, we're quite happy to almost bring consultants in on a medical basis to look at injuries, but we know like injuries are preventable, so it sort of makes sense that if we're happy to do it on a medical side, why are some clubs so resistant to do it on an S&C side? Whereas if you, like you say, if you do have the PFA and the game changer stuff's fantastic. I've seen it firsthand at St George's. Spent a sort of a summer with those guys actually, and it was brilliant. And the service they offer is fantastic. And again, because of where it is, it's PFA. And I've always heard very, very good things from any player who's required PFA services. They've always been there to support the players. So naturally, like you say, that trust is there. If you've got that trust in a surgeon, that every club sort of has their surgeons and their medical practitioners that they trust. Why wouldn't you also have an S&C or a sports science, or a psychologist, or a nutritionist, etc. Because now we're looking at that full multidisciplinary team. So it just baffles me a little bit that clubs are very happy when it comes to medical. Yeah, we've got those specialists and we'll trust them. But nutritionist, psychologist, you're working with this person. Why are you working with them? And it's like, well, hang on, you do it that way. Don't do it, why not that way? So yeah, I just wanted to make that point. But the trust is key, isn't it? It's absolutely key.
The interesting one as well, and Liam will be able to speak on this better than anyone, is you've just mentioned before about contracts, Liam, and the reality of football is that you're within a contract and then you're chasing the next contract, whether at that club or the next club. So you're looking after, as much as we're a team sport, it's individuals, isn't it? You're looking after yourself. Absolutely. And you this support that you're building around yourself, whether it is S&C coaches, physios, and everything we've touched on so far. Players have to treat themselves as an individual sport because as soon as you're out of contract, that club's not going to support you, are they?
Absolutely, yeah, spot on. I was lucky, my career was pretty good in terms of always having a club, always feeling like I was kind of on an upward trajectory. Everything was going how I would probably want it to go. Obviously, you can always push for more, but it felt like year on year I had a contract, I had stability, I knew what I was doing. I'd never been into even the last year of my contract up until I finished my time at Reading. So these concerns was never really something at the forefront of my mind. This isn't anything against any of the clubs I played for. It isn't about Reading in terms of the last club I played for before being out of contract. It's just part of the kind of football pyramid and the way that things work. When you have finished your contract, there is nothing in terms of there is no conversations between you and the club. You are your own man. You just you put out to the Wild West, if you like, and just like go and forge for yourself. And it's difficult. As a player, it's difficult. Like there's no secrets about what is provided for you as a player. You wake up, you go into training ground, breakfast is provided at majority of clubs. You need to go and do your pre-activation. That's going to be on the whiteboard exactly what you need to do. You're going to go out and train. You don't even have to think about what you're doing training. Just perform the best you can because they're going to have the numbers that they want you to hit. They're going to get the work into you that they want to get into. After training, you're going to go back in. You're going to have a meal that's provided for you. That's all the right things. And then you're going to also go in the after. If it's a gym day, go into the gym in the afternoon. The whole thing will be up there. What you need to do, just get it done. When you're out of contract, and as you said there about being your own man in your own sport, none of that is there. Like you don't know when you're going to train. You don't know sometimes where you're going to train. That was a real key thing about trying to bring that pitch size in here for like the rehab side of things. It's a big challenge that you do need to kind of overcome quickly, and one that I struggled with. You know, the weather was awful at times. I had nowhere to train where you could actually get proper excels, decels, and turns. You know, we're talking about mud bath pitches and snow and whatever else it is. So if we can kind of be open-minded in the sport and in the industry that you are your own sport and you are your own kind of individual within a team game, these kind of things can help be programmed for the testing events that are going to come up, whether it's an injury, whether it's being out of contract, because you do take some kind of responsibility. And naturally, that's going to come from having your own little team around you or having a trusted S&C guy rather than having to find them in the mix of madness. Because that's what I was doing. I was just trying to find somebody that understood football and understood me, and they get a snapshot of you of a week. And then I'm expecting them guys to try and build me a program to get me back fit where they have no history of me. They don't know what my normal load is. I'm just having to go off kind of my memory and my muscle memory. And if we can get these kind of trusted people that clubs are happy for you to work with, the longevity of the players' career is just gonna go up, and it's just going to increase because you've got your club, you've got your resources there, and you've got a trusted an outsourced S&C guy or nutritionist, whatever it is, that you can go to. And when the club finishes, which naturally every club's going to come to an end when it comes to a contract, you've still got that guy there. You've still got that trusted S&C guy there that you've worked with, who knows you, knows what you're capable of, knows what your numbers are like, and also is then going to help you then get back to where you want to be in the long run.
I think it's such an important point, that, because again, you look at the States and some of the sports over there and the way that, like the basketballs that you've named, that they treated their careers. You can understand exactly why, can't you? Because they've got consistency within all the chaos that's going on with games and all the rest of it, because they play a crazy amount as well, don't they, in the NBA? And you can just understand that it sort of checks a box as a player to say, right, these are my people. This is who I trust. I don't have to, there's not chaos over here because this is a bit of consistency for me. So when you are at the end of contract or whatever, and you're going to have changes with location, where you live in, what club it's going to be, the manager, the coaching staff, and all the rest of it, you've got something to rely on. So it makes complete sense, doesn't it, Jordan, in terms of just creating this team?
Oh yeah, and like I said, this is just a brilliant episode to follow on from everything we were saying about why players are using external practitioners. And I think Liam said it earlier. It's a brilliant point that football is probably behind some of the other sports. You know, and like I said in the last episode, football, I always say, is an individual sport within a team setting. As we've talked about already, you know, you are your own player, and it's your career at the end of the day. If we upped and suddenly started talking about individual sports, you look at golf, we look at tennis, you know, we look at, like, dare I say it as well, some of the like NBAs and stuff you're saying there. It can be a little bit at times like that as well, but they all have their own team. And if you look at some like really extreme examples, I don't know if you ever watched the Ross Edgley when he swims around the entire UK, which is a crazy, crazy event. Or you can look at the long distance runners. They have a massive team around them to make sure they can do these events. Like, but then we flip it to a team sport in football, and it's like, oh no, you shouldn't do that. It's like, but it's still an individual performing at that top level. There's no reason why they can't have a team around them as well. So yeah, I just think it's a no-brainer really. It all just boils down to that communication and that trust element. And what I was going to ask you, Liam, in terms of we're seeing it now with players signing for clubs, and in the contracts they ask the clubs are being savvy, and they're starting to write in clauses on external practitioners and anything. Um, in my mind, it makes the most sense that if you are signing for a club, and I just wanted to get your perspective on this, and if you ever did it or you saw it, where players will go and sign for a club and be really open and honest from day one and go, yeah, happy, here we go, here's the terms and conditions. By the way, this is my team as well. From day one, and then straight away that conversation's happened. Have you seen that happen, or is it always, oh, I'll keep it quiet? What sort of things have you seen?
Yeah, I think in the past it has been kept kind of very under wraps and quiet, but only recently, again, not somebody I know personally, but it was Elanga at Nottingham Forest moving to Newcastle. A trainer that he works with, somebody that I know not too well, but he was based in the Reading area. Tom Joyce is pushed him to new limits.
Yeah,
He is probably the prime example for anybody looking at outsourced work on what you can actually achieve by somebody that knows you, knows what you're capable of. Some of the lifts and stuff he does on a day before a match, people might be like, that is absolutely madness. But he's trained, he's primed, he's
yeah,
fit, he's strong. His numbers are outstanding. And I think that was very, I don't know exactly the ins and outs of it, but I think that was very open book from minute one because he was there at his signing with him. So that was something for me that was a bit of a statement where people can actually look at it and be like, Newcastle, for me, cannot have anything to say because you've probably signed him for one of his main attributes that is his physicality and his athleticism. And I thought that was a real strong kind of statement from him. And he's continued in the same kind of model that he's working at now. I always like to keep an eye on it because I remember him breaking through at United as a very good athletic player. But what he's hitting now and the numbers that he's hitting now are just out of this world.
Yeah.
And he's just continued it at University in Newcastle. And I think there's no secrets behind that. People can see it. There's other examples as well, like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, somebody that I'd played with at England under 21s a couple of times, somebody whose story I kind of follow, somebody who's had multiple injuries at Chelsea, probably ruined his Chelsea career. Probably, one manager's probably came in and has been like, I can't really trust him. He's not playing too regular. He's working with an outsourced person now that's very open. You just have to go onto Instagram. You can see it. He's flying. He's back in the England squad for the first time in 6-7 years. Two great examples of trusted practitioners that is very open. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. You've had lots of hamstring injuries. We're not just going to go down the kind of general, Nordic, general this, general that. It's very much individualized that's now kickstarted his career to a higher level. We spoke off camera about, somebody, a real high profile footballer that isn't so open now about who he's working with, if he's working with anybody, but he's playing regular now. He's playing regular because that club in particular has trusted the person that's working with this player, and that player's practitioner is actually going into the club and getting the treatment because people are being a little bit more open-minded that players need individual programs, which clubs will say that they do offer because here's your program, kind of do it. But let's dig real deep into what an individual program is. For me, I had an individual program when I was coming back from my big injury, and all my numbers were top end. Like, just being completely honest with you, they were top end. Nordics, highest in the squad, single leg kind of push, single leg pull, whatever it was, every number was, I was single leg, like squatting 1.5 times my body weight for sets of 8 to 10. I was RDLing for sets of 8 with 40 kilograms. Like, I had everything that on paper looks like it's, where it should be. If we would have dug a little bit deeper in terms of the individualized program that I need, I believe a big problem was probably I didn't have that kind of eccentric strength. Now in hindsight, because I'm now digging into it a bit more deeper in terms of I'm taking a lot more interest in this side of it, because naturally, if I've got a facility like this, I'm never going to be a top end S&C guy, but I'm going to need to know these things and have these conversations. And if I would have had that relationship between an outsourced guy and a club, we might have been able to pinpoint a little bit more of where these problems were. How could I have that amount of strength and literally pull a hamstring off the back of like just over a jog pace, or just over like a 50% effort turn? There was a lot more to it that clubs just quite honestly don't have the time to really, really dig into these details, because there's 25, 26, sometimes even 30 more individuals that need that attention. And again, obviously, we've gone quite a way off, the question that was asked, but something I'm very passionate about, and something that we are seeing within clubs, that some are being open-minded to it. And I think you've got to put your hats off to people like Newcastle, who are obviously know what Alanga's doing. They obviously, it's everywhere for everybody to see. And they are actually getting the rewards of the player putting in the effort elsewhere and putting in a trust with somebody else that will supplement what they're doing as a club as well.
It's a great point, because we've said probably more off camera, Jordan, about the results that a lot of these private coaches are getting that we're lucky to know and speak to. It only really gets flagged up when something like a debate's happened like it has recently. And that's kind of ignoring all the good work that's gone beforehand, all the times that that player's been available at the weekend, all the times that they've put performances on, like Liam's just mentioned, like all that gets ignored and it gets blown up because of one issue. So it's great to highlight that and highlight some of the people that are doing such top work. I thought that with Tom as well. I thought it was a real statement for him to be at the signing. They've obviously got a really good relationship now. For him to take him to the signing for a club like Newcastle, but I thought it was such a good statement. And yeah, you're right. Like you see the work that's going into it. And if you see a snapshot, you're like, wow, he's doing a lot of like big lifts, explosive work and stuff. But track it back over the time and the work that's gone into achieving where he's at now, that comes again from this trust and communication between practitioner and player, doesn't it? And this real bond that they've produced over time, which can't be upplayed enough.
So I was just going to jump in. I just wanted to go back to what you're saying on the club will never say to the practitioner, oh, he's reported for pre-season in amazing shape, by the way, so thank you ever so much for all the work you did in off-season.
Yeah.
Or they'll never go, oh, he's gone. He's, I don't know, let's say typically quite injury prone, seems to break down every 3 months. Oh, he's gone 2 seasons without breaking down. They'll never then turn around and go, by the way, thanks for all that work you were doing with our player. But the minute it goes the other way, and as we know, a debate that sparked up recently, it's like, oh, it's him, it's terrible, he's broken our player, and it's all like this. So it goes both ways. So I 100% just wanted to echo that, just to like clubs to recognise it is good, and to also see. But again, the point you made in the last podcast is, Tom Joyce has worked with Langer for a long time, and what the debate sparked around recently that our previous podcast was on. The practitioner and the player had worked together for a lot longer than that player had been at the club. And, we've got players in at the hub down here, down south, who I've been working with them for a longer time than they've been at 2 or 3 clubs in that time, just through contracts and releases and things like this. But they've been with me consistently, and we've been through multiple injuries together. So just from first-hand experience, I know when they do go back into a club, I can sort of say, there you go, by the way, this is the sort of journey that they've been on. And that just comes full circle. That is just golden information. Like if you are a club and you're signing a player, and then the external practitioner comes in and says, by the way, this is everything we've done recently, then why wouldn't you want that information? That's just such a big added benefit. And then it just opens that door for communication. The link between the club and the practitioner gets stronger. And essentially, and I'll ask you on this, Liam, in a situation like that, the player must feel really good, because it's almost like they've got 2 very strong support networks around it. Am I right in saying that?
100%, 100%. Because obviously the work that he gets in with, like his S&C coach, if we talk about Alanga still in particular, he will get so much kind of mental support from his trainer, Tom Joyce, as well as his physical. Because when you're within a club, you are at a club, but as we said, it's very individualized in a team sport. So he can be very open and honest about maybe, I feel like my hamstrings are weak, or I feel like I'm slow on the turn, or whatever it may be. You've got your trusted guy naturally within a club, everything that you kind of say gets repeated. That's just how football clubs work. So that support network as an outsource is huge as well. And I go back to what I said there. Clubs, if it's done in the right way, should be pretty thankful for the results that they're getting off these players. You're going to give my player individual care, and you're going to individually improve my player to help my club. It's a win-win if it's done in the right way. It is literally a win-win. It's just got to be, the key word there is in the right way. So I do believe that we need to get markers, whether it's from the club and that's handed to the practitioner or the other way around. So you know where you're working at and you're working within the same kind of perimeters. But if that is done, there is no reason why there should be any tension at all. And if the player does pick something up, it's okay. It's not ideal, but we've both spoke about it. We both know where he's at. We both know what you're doing and we're doing. It's only a quick check-in. We don't expect these clubs to be speaking to the practitioners every day and vice versa. But at the start of a month, you can be like, this is how a month's going to look for us. We've got some big games coming up. Training's going to be kind of deloaded there. If you could kind of match that up, that'd be brilliant. That would be so key for kind of moving forward. When you're guessing, you could have the very best practitioner in the world, the very, very best in every area. If the club's not open, and they know that they're going to absolutely work the players in this next week because it's 7 days between the games, then he might have a whole program for him. The player might naturally not say too much because he's just gone and done the work he needed to do. And then you're putting him in a danger zone because that conversation hasn't happened. So it is key. I think that clubs now need to realise that players are going to do it regardless. They know that they have to look after themselves first and foremost. They know that you have to be athletically outstanding to stay in this game. The game's getting faster every single year. I've been retired now just a year. I look at games and think that looks ridiculously fast. I can't ever remember it being that fast, and it's only going to get faster. These guys are training like animals. Each player, it's almost gone from talent to athleticism to now athleticism and then talent. That's kind of the main requirements of the game. And then you look at the top end boys, they're playing 60, 70 games a calendar year. You can't get through 60 or 70 games in a calendar year without having individualized attention on you. It's impossible, physically impossible. But if you've got the right team around you that are loading you in the right way, they are treating you in the right way, they are getting you through your recovery in the right way, then you are going to get up to those kind of numbers. Prime examples, Ronaldo, Messi, Harry Kane, people like that. Another one I played with, Reading, Michael Elise. He was at Reading, went to Crystal Palace. I think he picked up 2 or 3 hammies in one season. Now, touch wood, he continues in the trajectory he's on right now. He's fit, he's strong, he's physically in a much better condition than he ever was before. And he's somebody, again, that I know works with external, but internal. So it's not secret, it's combined, and they're getting the very best results out of him. Look at him now, he's absolutely flying. And I think some of those examples are prime examples for clubs and players, what can be achieved with a team around you.
It's really good to hear like some of the blueprints that you've raised, because these players are top of the game, aren't they? And it's we can learn a lot of lessons from what they're doing. I think the other point, just a couple of points on what you've said, is one, we've spoke about, John, haven't we, that when you're getting feedback from players around what they've done, you're not always going to get someone with the knowledge of Liam come and speak to you and talk about all the intricacies of his program, because you understand it a lot better. You get some players coming in that will give you a very small amount of, I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, or whatever. So you have to have that extra level from the club to understand what they've done, because there could be a lot of details missed out. Well, then the other thing I was going to say was, the big thing is not just a programming, not just giving players a good programming, an individualized program, it's the coaching as well. So when you look at someone like Tom Joyce and Elanga, just imagine the details that are going on within that session. Obviously, we see a snapshot on social media, but you can see that there's massive intent on some of these movements and exercises. That doesn't come from just writing down 3 sets of 8 or whatever it's going to be. There's real education and coaching going on behind the scenes as well. And that's what has to come from this individualized one-to-one or small group approach, because you're not going to get that 1 to 20, are you?
Yeah, 100%. And I really like that point that you're saying there at the end, in terms of like just general basics of coaching, right? We know that when I'm coaching 10 players, my time is spread thin between those 10 players. When I'm coaching one player, obviously got better eyes on. So I love what you said, Liam, in terms of clubs should almost be thankful because, like I say, the players are an for the club essentially, and yet somebody else is training them. That's like free money, you know. Somebody else is making your asset better. You know, okay, happy days. Yeah, I'll take that. Thank you very much. But like you said, you know, you've got to make sure the internal and the external are all married up, and the sooner clubs realise that, the better. So, no, just a massive thank you to you, Liam, for being really open and honest, and yeah, just I think everything you're doing is spot on. It's spot on, and I think again because of your playing career, I think hopefully it's going to really make some clubs maybe and people at clubs go, oh, actually, yeah, okay, maybe we can trust these externals a little bit, you know, and maybe change their tune a little bit. We will see though. We will see. We're not too sure yet. Well, the jury's out on that one, but we'll see.
Liam, just finish us up. I'm intrigued to hear about your mindset and this change from playing. And like we mentioned, not going into retirement, putting your feet up, you've gone into full steam ahead with the facility. What's that change been like for you?
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been exhausting, but it's been super, super rewarding. And we're just getting started. I have to say that. It's not like we're anywhere near where we want to be. But for me, within the game, you always set targets. You always want to leave your very own legacy, whether it's, well, at the level I played at, it's more for your family. The top end level, they'll leave legacy that stays in history books for a long time. Your Ronaldo's, your Messi's. But for me, I had a lot of aims. I wanted to play till I was 35. I wanted to get to a set number of games. There's lots of things that I wanted to do. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to hit the heights that I truly wanted to have inside. A lot of people might say, you did really well and, you had a good career. But I still have that drive about leaving a legacy in the game. Everybody's legacy is different. And I really believe that I can make a little bit of a difference within a change of kind of mindset on this side of things. An area that I'm really, really pushing at the minute. I'm speaking to, a lot of the high football authorities about trying to support out of contract players. That's like an area for me that has gone under the radar for a long time. The camp that's happened the last 2 years at the PFA has been outstanding. You've seen the amount of players that are getting signed off the back of it. My concern is always, and it was the area that I was in, what happens at 10 weeks plus one? So the camp lasts for 10 weeks. You don't get signed. And it's the 10th week or just going into the 11th week. What happens for these guys then? And that's the kind of legacy, if you like, that I want to leave on the game. I just want people to really understand that these people are human. They're footballers, their fathers, their brothers, whatever they are. And football's like their lives. They're so focused on their career to provide, to do what they've kind of always dreamt of doing. And when you're left to your own devices, when you're running down local parks, when you're struggling to get training sessions in, whether it's because of finances, whether it's because of no accessibility to these places, it's an area that I'm hugely concentrating at this venue to really try and change, to try and focus on, to give kind of people that platform just to kickstart. Because you know what it's like, you guys in particular, as an S&C guy, if you've got a player coming in after 6 months being out of contract and you ask him, what have you been doing? And he turns around and says, oh, well, I've been doing a bit of high speed running down the park. I've been trying to lift a couple of times a week. That means absolutely nothing to you because you've got no kind of back into it. We've got no numbers. We've got no, this is where he's at. And I guarantee if you've had a player like that, the first game he goes into, you're kind of going in it with your eyes closed thinking, I don't know what's going to happen here. He could last 5 minutes. He could last 95 minutes. And for me, that's what's driven me so much in this, because I know that we can make a difference for some of these people. I know that when they transition from here onto a club, you can go, here's a full database. This is where his hamstrings are at. This is how much high speed running he's done. This is how many training sessions he's had. This is where his strengths are in every area of his body. And it's almost like that natural progression handover. So yeah, the transition has been great, but with that drive I've just spoke about there, it's made it very worth it. And I believe we'll be looking back in time to come and be like, every little bit of effort and time and emotion spent into it's been, very much part of the journey.
It's a very strong mission and purpose of a business there. So I can tell that you guys are going to be successful. But we wish you all the best of it. Like I say, from everything we've seen, we've been super impressed already, and that's just been upped numerous amounts from speaking to you as well. So yeah, we wish you all the best with it, Liam. Just give listeners, if they want to go and check out the facility, where would you direct them? What socials are you using? Yeah, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so we're on Instagram. So it's Prime Precision underscore performance. The website should be live in a few days. Obviously, we've only literally finished pretty much today. Just had a couple of other extra bits put in. And you'll see a lot more of us over the coming weeks and months. Again, I can't guarantee exactly when because I'd spoke about all of this on how important it is about having the right people through the door, having the right practitioners. I could have opened 2 months ago and just had anybody through the door, but it's very much the top of my priority list to make sure this is run absolutely correctly with the right people, with the right communication, with the right databases in place. But yeah, over the coming weeks and months, you'll see a lot more of us. We'll start off working individualized, which we've been doing a little bit already. And then a huge focus for me is to try and team up with some of these kind of higher authorities within the game to be trusted, to be a follow-on from an out-of-contract event or to be a follow-on from an injury event. And then also in the evenings, we'll be looking at supporting kind of out-of-contract, semi-professional, and part-time football as well, because you've also got that where players have been in the game, they drop down to part-time football. That load drops. They want to perform to the level they did before, but they're not getting the doses that they need. So there's so many areas to this that we want to do, but what's paramount is the right people through the door. Has to be the right practitioners and a trusted venue for everybody.
Brilliant. Liam, this has been super. Thank you very much for coming on and really appreciate your time.
No problem. Appreciate coming on. Thank you, guys.
Quality, mate.
Jordan, I knew that you would enjoy chatting with Liam, but I think from us seeing the facility on social media to now speaking to him and hearing about the passion behind it, and he even went into more detail after we finished recording as well on everything he's been through as a player. I think it's amazing to see the facility, but the reason why that he's created it as well.
Yeah, and it's just powerful, isn't it? And like I kept saying on the episode, it's a brilliant one to follow up what we were talking about recently. And when you know your why for doing something so strongly, it sounds wishy-washy, but you're almost inevitably going to be successful, I think, because it's so ingrained into you. And obviously he was saying off air in terms of the some of the treatments and things that had gone wrong for him over his career, which sort of really lit that fire. And I think it's similar with both of us. Like, I made no secret that I don't think I would have ended up in this line of work if I hadn't done my ACL at 18. I probably would have gone down more of a technical coaching route, but because I did that and I was, I need, and then rehab and I'm thinking about S&C and thinking about sports science and it led me down that route. So that was my why. Liam's why in terms of really wanting to help out the contract players as well, I think is really, really powerful. And it's something that we see at the Hub all the time, providing rehab for them. But also, like, I loved, probably should have made more of a point of it, when he said about when you're the one-on-one person or you're the external practitioner, you're also such an important support network for just talking and just being that person, with them consistently. That is a real strength of a private coach and a private facility like he's got. Because we like he hit the nail on the head. When you are in the club, you can't share. You've got to be very guarded with what you say, because at the end of the day, like in a 25, 30 player squad, there's going to be people out for your shirt number. So if the person who's gunning for your shirt thinks there's a little chink in the armor and they might be able to exploit that, they're going to do it. Obviously, it's on them to do that. You would expect them to. So, having that sort of private facility, private coach, team behind the team, whatever you want to call it, it just I think it just makes it a better environment for players. But I'm not going to go over everything he said because I think everything he said was absolutely bang on. And facility looks great. His passion's fantastic. What they've built is amazing, and I genuinely think it's going to be a really, really powerful place for a lot of players to train.
Yeah, it's just really interesting to hear his perspective as a player, wasn't it? Obviously, we spoke about a lot of the topics we covered in the episode that we did together, but to hear it from him firsthand, both on a reflection level of maybe what he'd done differently throughout his career, but then also some of the challenges he faced, and also the extra things and the way he sort of treated himself as this individual within the team sport, which we keep talking about. That's reality. I think the other side of it is with the contracts, and we probably didn't touch on as many like external influences as well, like agents and everything else that goes on within the world of football, and players. Like you said, when you start speaking to players on an individual level, they're going through a hell of a lot of uncertainty at times, especially when they're out of contract.
Yeah.
And they've got people sniffing around them, offering them different deals. There's relocating. Then you throw in like family and everything else that can go on with people. Like that one-to-one support for them is huge. And also just the fact he brought up about Tom Joyce and Elanga, that he was at the signing, like that for me is quite powerful, that he's showing him there as part of his support team, and everyone can see the work that they've done, but it's like, this is my guy. So yeah, no, it's brilliant to have Liam on. I wish him the best of luck with the facility. I'm sure they'll absolutely smash it down there. But yeah, it was great to have him on. Hopefully we'll get him on again when they're open, they're up and running, they got full staff in, and we can maybe do a bit of reflection on how it's been going. But yeah, thanks again, Jordan. It was great to have you on and give your perspective on things, because I know it was one that you didn't want to miss.
Yeah, of course.
And then just finally from us, just go and check out the sponsors, Hytro, The Good Prep, and also Hawking Dynamics. And we'll speak to you again next week in episode 360.
See you soon.